Hello everyone, welcome to Options with Doug, streaming live on Monday and Wednesday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Bookmap Discord and the Bookmap YouTube channel. Before I get started, I need to go through the disclosures. General disclosure, all Bookmap Limited materials, information, and presentations are for educational purposes only and should not be considered specific investment advice nor recommendations. Risk disclosure, trading futures, equities, and options involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. Here's my contact information. The best way to get in touch with me is through Discord. My name on Discord is Doug P. Also in Bookmap Discord, there's an Options-Doug chat channel. You can post questions, comments, and content related to the topics of my presentation and the topics of the channel that I'll go through in just a moment. And I'm also on X. My name there is @Pless. I've got several announcements today. First of all, about Bookmap sales. So last week it was Bookmap deals are coming, and today it is Bookmap deals are here. So there are several slides here. First, the Black Friday deals, 50% off. This is a quarterly deal, Global Plus quarterly, plus 50% off data for 3 months. So that's the quarterly deal. Then the monthly deal, 60% off, Global Plus monthly, plus data for 1 month. That goes through the end of the year, the same as the quarterly deal. And then finally, 50% off add-ons. That includes the MBO bundle, very popular add-on. Again, 50% off through the end of the year. And just want to let you know the Pro Trader webinar series that began last Friday continues through the end of the week. And here are the speakers. All right, here are the key tenets to my approach to trading. I believe in options trades and market maker hedging activity are key drivers of price in many stocks and futures. That certainly applies to large cap tech stocks like the Magnificent Seven stocks, as well as the equity index futures like the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ 100. And for the S&P 500, SPX is the underlying index, SPY is the ETF version of that index, and the ES futures contract is a derivative of SPX. And when traders buy and sell puts and calls in SPX and SPY, market makers will take the opposite side of those trades and they'll hedge their delta exposure with ES futures. And for the NASDAQ 100, NDX is the underlying index, QQQ is the much more liquid ETF version of that index, and the NQ futures contract is a derivative of NDX. And just like the S&P 500, when traders buy and sell puts and calls in NDX and QQQ, market makers take the opposite side of those trades and they hedge their delta exposure with NQ futures. The focus of my presentation today and the focus of the Options-Doug chat channel is options order flow, the impact of options markets on stocks and futures, and the influence of market maker hedging flow on price action. I have a two-step process for trading. The first is planning, and I use positional analysis. I look at how traders and market makers are positioned to the options market and how those positions change from day to day to develop a bias and a directional bias and a thesis on volatility. And the second step in my process is execution. I look at real-time order flow in Bookmap and real-time market maker hedging flow in Spotgamma Hero to confirm my thesis and for setups. And when I talk about setups today, I will be focusing on an underlying asset. Setups in that asset can be taken with futures contracts, shares of stock, or options, depending on the asset as well as the way you like to trade. Questions and comments are welcome, and I will be watching both the Options-Doug chat channel as well as the chat and YouTube for your questions and comments. Please feel free to post. I'll do my best to answer your questions. And hello, Amir, NJC. Welcome. Glad you're here. Here's my agenda for today. Monday, December 1st. First of all, I want to go over news items, economic data and events for today as well as the rest of the week. Then I'll go through my positional analysis. Then I'll review some setups from earlier today. Then I'll take a look at the live market. And when I get to live market, if anyone has any stocks they want me to take a look at, please let me know and I'll be glad to do that. All right, let's get started with economic data, news, and events. I'm going to take a look at the events calendar on the Spotgamma dashboard home screen. And this is showing data that was released today as well as the rest of the week. So let's take a look at that. All right, so today, both S&P, US S&P, and ISM manufacturing PMI data came out. 945 S&P manufacturing PMI came in greater than expected, greater than previous, and then greater than 50, indicating expansion. And they're just the opposite for the ISM manufacturing PMI, came in less than expected, less than the previous number, and also less than 50, indicating contraction. So a little bit of a conflict there. And then Jerome Powell will be speaking this evening at 8 p.m. Not sure the context of that. Tomorrow, JOLTS job data comes out, job openings data at 10 a.m. On Wednesday, ADP private data, private employment data comes out, private payroll data, 8:15 a.m. Eastern Time. And then the services PMI comes out for S&P at 9:45, and then for ISM at 10 a.m. Jobless claims come out on Thursday, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Then on Friday, PCE data comes out at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. I believe that is from September. And then I'm not sure about the jobs report. Normally it's the first Friday of the month. The jobs report would come out. I haven't seen any confirmation about that. More about that on Wednesday. And then at 10 a.m., Michigan consumer sentiment. So a lot of smaller, medium impact data releases coming out this week. All right, so that's the news items for the week. Let's move on to positional analysis now. I'm going to start with the S&P 500. Nice uptrend. These swings are getting smaller and smaller. And let's take a quick look at a couple of key levels before we go to a higher time frame. So first of all, the SPX 6800 level acting as support and a launching point for a long right at the cash open, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And SPX trading up above the 68.15 volatility trigger and the SPY 680 absolute gamma strike. And looks like the next major level up above is the 68.50 level, noted as resistance in the Spotgamma AM Founders Note. All right, so let's step back. Let's take a look at our higher time frame before we spend much more time on this chart. So let me clean this up. Go to SPX, the underlying index. And we're going to take a look at a one-day, one-year chart for SPX in Thinkorswim. Let's focus on the more recent price action. Of course, the rally that began in April now has shown quite a bit more chop. Looks like the rally has slowed down and maybe building a base, some consolidation here. All right, so focusing on the most recent price action. This is from Thursday before last. So a week ago, last Thursday. And that was the day after NVIDIA reported earnings. And traders decided that AI stocks were too expensive. Dumped them, including NVIDIA. And then prices rallied since then. And note, SPX did trade down below the October 10th tariff tantrum low, which was right around 65.50. All right, let's take a look at a shorter time frame now. Let's go to a, whoops, wrong chart. I want to go to a 30-day 1-hour chart. That's right here. And let's take a look now at the most recent price action again. There's that NVIDIA AI puke and traded down below the 1010 tariff tantrum lows, and now it's recovered. SPX last Wednesday broke above this 67.50 to 67.70 support and resistance level that I've talked about, and now trading higher, did gap down this morning and then recovering during the day as we saw on the Bookmap chart. So let's take a look at the levels on this chart now. I'm going to start with the expected moves. The dashed purple lines are showing the lower and upper weekly expected move. This is based on the options market, based on the closing price for SPX from last Friday. Those levels remain in place for the entire week. They do not change. And then the dashed blue lines are showing the lower and upper daily expected move. This is also based on the options market, based on the closing price for SPX, again from last Friday. And I do post the expected moves every day, the day before at the close for SPX, ES, and NQ. All right, so SPX did trade down below the lower daily expected move earlier today and now is trading up above. All right, let's take a look at the Spotgamma levels on this chart. These are based on gamma-weighted open interest. They're provided to Spotgamma subscribers on a variety of trading platforms. Again, this is Thinkorswim, a 30-day 1-hour chart. I'm going to point out the key daily levels. And first of all, note they are pretty tightly clustered today. And both the put wall and call wall were influenced by a large iron condor, the trader that Spotgamma calls Captain Condor. We'll take a look at that in just a minute. So the put wall and call wall, again, influenced by this iron condor. All right, so let's focus on the key daily levels. Note the cluster of levels here. Key level, the put wall, at 68.10, and that's a strike with large net negative gamma that can be expected to act as support. And again, that level was changed from Friday based on the that iron condor. And so that's at 68.10. That did move up from Friday. Then also the volatility trigger 5 points above at 68.15. That is Spotgamma's proprietary volatility and gamma flip level. Below that level, market makers' position on the gamma curve is negative. In a negative gamma environment, market makers have to trade with price to hedge their delta exposure. That tends to enhance or increase volatility. Above that level, market makers' position on the gamma curve is positive. In a positive gamma environment, market makers have to trade against price to hedge their delta exposure. That tends to subdue or decrease volatility. Note that is based on Spotgamma's older total open interest model, and we'll take a look at a view of gamma based on the newer synthetic open interest model. Paints a little bit different picture. And the volatility trigger also shifted higher. And then finally, the call wall is at 68.75. And that is the strike with large absolute positive gamma, net positive gamma that can be expected to act as resistance. And that is also the short call strike of the large iron condor. And that level also moved up from Friday. And then finally, the absolute gamma strike is at 7,000. That's a strike with large absolute positive and negative gamma. So that's where most of the gamma-weighted open interest is concentrated. So to summarize, the volatility trigger, put wall, and call wall all moved higher for SPX and SPY. So that is a bullish hat trick for both SPX and SPY. So that's bullish. And we'll see how those levels shake out tomorrow, Wednesday, if of course the iron condor will be closed today. It's a 0 DE position. All right, let's wrap up our view of SPX with a 1-minute chart, so we can focus more closely on the most recent price action. So you can see the gap down today. SPX trading down around 6,800, finding support at that level, and then breaking out above the volatility trigger at 68.15. Note that level acted as resistance, then support. And SPX continues to grind higher. All right, let's take a quick look at SPY, then we'll get back to Bookmap. So SPY gapped down yesterday evening, began trading at 8 p.m. Eastern, and then now has almost closed that gap. Key levels, 680, absolute gamma strike, and then the volatility trigger just above at 683. Right, back to Bookmap. So again, I pointed out key SPX and SPY levels. There's the 6800 level, and then the SPY 680 level, and the SPX 6815 volatility trigger that acted as resistance, then support. And now next levels up above are the SPY 683 volatility trigger, and then there's a combo 1 level just above that that combines SPX and SPY gamma weighted open interest into 1 level, in this case in terms of SPY price. And then above that again is the 6850. All right, so I'm focusing on SPY and SPX key Spotgamma levels. And there is an offset, a difference between ES and SPX, for example. That offset, that different price difference, changes every day. And today it's right around 12. It was 11 earlier today, right around 12 now. So ES minus SPX is 12. So I'm showing the 6815 volatility trigger at ES 6827. All right, so pretty wild swings in the morning, but overall price moving up, and the swings are getting smaller and smaller, the pullback smaller and smaller. All right, so that's the S&P 500. We'll talk about setups in just a couple of minutes. Let's take a look at NASDAQ. Strong day on NASDAQ as well, now consolidating. And just like the S&P 500, I have key index levels shown on this chart. That would be QQQ and NDX. So let's take a look at the levels in isolation for those, so we can get a more clear picture. So let's start with QQQ, see what levels are in play. All right, so just like SPY, QQQ did gap down at the open yesterday evening. So let's zoom in on the range. And it looks like QQQ has just about closed that gap. Key levels, QQQ now trading up above its volatility trigger at 616. Found support around the 613 zero gamma level earlier today. And again, nice steady uptrend. The swings are getting smaller and smaller. All right, let's take a look at NDX. Last time I looked, there was only one level in play up above, and it looks like NDX has reached that level, And again, looks like it has closed the gap as well. So this level is a large Gamma 4 level at 25,400. And NASDAQ really consolidating after this big move in the morning and trading up above that level. So let's go back to Bookmap now. So here's the QQQ 6130 Gamma level. Launching port for long. NASDAQ trading up above its lower daily expected move now. There's the QQQ volatility trigger at 618. Oops. Did I have that right? That may not be right. I can't see the label. So the looks like the label, I may have the label there wrong. I think 618 is the volatility trigger for QQQ. Let's check that. Go back to QQQ. It's 616. So I wrote it down on my notebook wrong. So it is right on the Bookmap chart. Sorry about that. All right, back to Bookmap, 616, volatility trigger, and then there's that NDX, 25,400, large Gamma 4 level, and then more levels up above. All right, so that's NASDAQ. Nice, steady uptrend, swings getting smaller again. And we'll take a look at setups in just a couple of minutes. All right, shifts in levels for NASDAQ. And for NDX, volatility trigger shifted lower, call wall higher. And then for QQQ, the volatility trigger and call wall both shifted higher. So that's a bullish brace for QQQ. All right, let's wrap up our positional analysis by taking a look at Gamma. And this is going to be a very important chart. So let's take a look at Trace. This is the Trace Gamma heat map in Bookmap. And this is showing market maker Gamma. Red shading indicates negative Gamma. Remember, negative Gamma, we're looking for higher volatility, wider range of price movement, more trending market. And you can see the blue shading way up above and below. That is positive Gamma. And in positive Gamma, we're looking for lower volatility, slower price movement, more support and resistance. All right, so let's step back. I'm going to zoom. Well, we'll keep the zoom level. Let's step back toward the beginning of the day. Go back to 9:30. So you can see here the iron condor. Price was trading actually down below this level. So this is the 68.05, 68.10 put spread. So large trader sold this put spread, sold a call spread for an iron condor. Price traded down below this level, below the level before the open, traded up above. And all the traders in this iron condor breathed a sigh of relief. So let's step through time. So we can see the Gamma now will start to diminish on the put side. And still negative Gamma. Looking for trending market, higher volatility. And you can see the hero line here. Moving up as traders are taking positive delta options positions. More about that in just a minute. So you can see the Gamma on the put side has diminished quite a bit, as well as the call side. So it looks like this iron condor will be mostly a winner today. as, again, the iron condor traders breathe a sigh of relief with this rally. All right, so the key here is SPX trading a negative gamma, traders taking positive delta positions. So let's take a closer look at that. So let's go to Hero now. So not sure what's going on there. Back to full screen. All right, so I'm using the older version of Hero. In my presentations, I jump around from one instrument to another, and I find it a little bit easier. So we'll start off with the S&P 500, and this is the S&P 500 index signal. So what this chart is showing is options trades and market maker hedging activity for the S&P 500 index components, and this is real time. So the white line is price, and the purple line is the Hero signal. Again, for the S&P 500 index components, we take a look at a couple of those, SPX and SPY, and the other two are ES Futures and XSP. So overall today, this is showing an upward trend, upward bias, as traders take positive delta positions, indicating they are buying calls, selling puts. Market makers take the opposite side of those trades, and they have to buy ES futures to hedge their delta exposure. All right, so there were a couple setups this morning. Let's focus on those. First of all, in the morning, not knowing how this was going to resolve, there was a long setup with these big swings, a short setup, and then another long setup. So this long setup was preceded by a flow alert signaling significant options activity, a potential reversal in hedging flow from, this case, negative delta to positive delta. So that's the first long. Then a short with this peak pattern here. Traders reversed their positions, started taking negative delta options positions, and then again reverse positions right around 1035 for the, looks like the trade of the day. 1035 going long, and that has continued. Let's take a closer look. Well, first of all, let's take a look at the S&P equity signal. So this is showing options trades and market maker hedging activity for all 500 stocks in the S&P 500 index. So again, the white line is price for SPX, and the purple line is the Hero signal. Again, showing options trades, market maker hedging activity for all 500 stocks in the S&P 500 index. And it looks like it took a little bit longer to get going. So when I'm trading the S&P 500 in the morning, I'm typically looking at the index signal first. So let's shift to puts and calls now. So the blue line is showing puts. Rising orange line indicates positive delta. Traders are selling puts. Rising orange line indicates traders are buying calls. So we can see pretty much from the open, traders have been selling puts. So they continue to monetize their expensive puts that they bought in the last couple of weeks, selling puts and then buying calls. Call line really marking the turns, bullish, bearish, and the bullish again for the final move higher right around 1035. Let's take a look at one other signal. I want to take a look at the 0 TDE options. All right, so the purple line is showing all expirations, that today, tomorrow, the end of the week, next month, next year. And then the teal line is showing next expiry, so the S&P 500. For the S&P 500, this would be options that expire today. And this is interesting here, that this signal is much larger. Typically, there's a very close correlation between 0 DTE and all trades. So I take this as bullish, longer term bullish. Traders are taking longer term bullish positions, longer than 0 DTE. So looking at this as longer term bullish. All right, so let's turn this off. Let's go back to puts and calls. Then let's go take a look at Bookmap. Go back to the S&P 500. So remember, a long setup, short setup, then the final long of the day. As traders switch their positions from, remember, the first flow alert, positive delta, peak, negative delta, and then the reversal again right around 10:35 for those three trades. So in Bookmap, for this first long, you can see the volume dots show market buy minus sell. In Bookmap, sellers are exhausted. Green volume dots indicate more buyers than sellers. And S&P 500 ES reverses higher. And then traders continued to buy, even though options traders took negative delta positions. And it looks like large traders with iceberg orders, as well as sell stop orders, helped to fuel that move lower, even though cumulative volume delta continued to rise. A little bit of an unusual pattern here. But anyway, the final trade looks like the aggressive buyers and sellers finally, as well as the call buyers and put sellers, finally got the upper hand, and the S&P 500 continued to move higher. It looks like now finding resistance at the 683 SPY volatility trigger. All right, that's the S&P 500. Overall bullish day, although it was hard to really know for the first hour or so what the S&P 500 was going to do. Well, let's move on to NASDAQ now. Looks like NASDAQ consolidating as well. Overall bullish day. Let's take a look at Hero and see what options traders are doing. I'm going to go back to the total signal. Go back to the NASDAQ signal. So for the S&P 500, there are two signals that we can take a look at: the index signal, the equity signal, and there's similar signals for the NASDAQ. The first is the NASDAQ index signal. This is showing options trades and market maker hedging activity. For the NASDAQ index components, we've already taken a look at those. That is QQQ and NDX. A little bit of a choppy signal here, not nearly as clear to me as the S&P 500 index signal. But the main turning point was here at 1035, just like the S&P 500, although NASDAQ was already making a higher low. So let's zoom in on it just a little bit. It will become more clear. So now you can see that turning point at 1035 as traders take positive delta options positions. So the other signal that we can take a look at for the NASDAQ is the MAG 7 signal. A little bit more clear today. Key turning point here at 945. So what this is showing is options trades and market maker hedging activity for the stocks known as the Magnificent Seven: Apple, Amazon, Google, Meta, Microsoft, Nvidia, Tesla. These stocks make up a large component of the NASDAQ 100 as well as the S&P 500 and often drive the market. So the turning point here was a little bit more clear. So let's shift to puts and calls. And you can see starting right around 945, traders started selling puts, shown by the rising orange line, buying calls. Market makers take the opposite side of those trades, and they have to buy stock to hedge their delta exposure. And we'll take a look at some of those stocks in just a minute. So there, the MAG 7 signal providing more clarity, showing the key turning point, 945 in NASDAQ. And there it is right there. And the subchart pretty similar to the S&P 500. Large traders fading the move, as well as sell stop orders continue to move lower, even though the index moves higher. That's really unusual. Usually the stop orders are going in the direction of price. So aggressive buyers and options traders really driving price in the indexes today. All right, that's NASDAQ. Any questions about the indexes? All right, let's move on. Let's take a look at some stocks. First stock I want to take a look at is NVIDIA. Very bullish day here in NVIDIA. This morning, there was, first of all, news about NVIDIA. They have a partnership, made a deal with Synopsys, and Synopsys is up pretty substantially today, and it looks like NVIDIA as well. There was an interview this morning, right around 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time, with on CNBC with the two CEOs, Jensen Huang of NVIDIA and the CEO of Synopsys, and it was, of course, very bullish, typical of Jensen Huang. It looks like traders are finally buying the dip in NVIDIA. So a bullish day in NVIDIA. Let's see what options traders are doing. We'll go to NVIDIA. And this is a clear bullish call-driven, bullish opening drive, call-driven. Traders buy calls, market makers sell the calls. They have to buy stock to hedge their delta exposure. Price breaks above the 177 hedge wall. Looks like a little bit of resistance at that level. And then the key target for today was the 180 key gamma strike. And it looks like the call buyers took the foot off the gas right as NVIDIA reached that level, and it continues to consolidate at that level. So bullish opening drive, call driven, and then call buyers take the foot off the gas, and now NVIDIA consolidating just around the 180 key gamma strike. Back to Bookmap. All right, so there's that 180 key gamma strike. The heat map in Bookmap shows a history of limit orders in the auto book, and those were limit sell orders. Looks like they were consumed, came back in, consumed again. Now more limit sell orders at 180. So very nice rally in NVIDIA today. Dip buyers coming in, presumably on this partnership and the positive comments from the CEOs. All right, so that's NVIDIA. Let's take a look at a couple of other stocks, and we'll get to some crypto-related stocks as well. All right, Tesla, very choppy day today. Let's see what options traders are doing. Take a look at Tesla. Tesla, again, pretty choppy day. Setting up some really short-term scalp trades. First of all, a short here. These call peak patterns make nice shorts, short signals, call peaks. So overall, it was a short in the morning, reversal higher, and then another short. So the first short, 937, next 1013, and then overall choppy for the day. So let's zoom in here. So we're looking for the shorts at right after 930, 937 and 1013. So right here, these two shorts. Overall, though, bullish Slightly bullish from the opening print, at least in this view. So really just short scalps or long, although the call signal did come in a little bit later. First short reversal 430, 431. Next short at 433. All right, that's Tesla. Next stock, Broadcom. Bearish opening drive. Broadcom was very strong last week in trading in sync, actually a little bit higher than Google. So the news came out about Google and their AI chips. Meta might be interested in buying their AI chips, and they're designed by Broadcom or jointly designed by Broadcom. So Broadcom very strong last week, and then trading a bit lower today. Let's see what options traders are doing. And this was a very nice half-hour bearish opening drive. So let's see what options traders are doing. Let's go to Broadcom. Zoom in on this a bit. Bearish opening drive, bearish momentum. Full alert comes in just after the cash open. Get your attention. Traders buying puts, selling calls. Price moves lower. Again, for the first half hour, so for the first 30 minutes. Nice bearish scalp. Then not a lot of clarity after that. All right, so let's take a look at one crypto-related stock here. I do have this in Bookmap, and we'll take a look at a couple of others in Hero here. So my understanding is, I think over the weekend there was a podcast where the MicroStrategy CFO mentioned something about selling Bitcoin, and that seemed to spark a move lower over the weekend. If anyone knows has any different information, please let me know. But that's my understanding. So sparking a move down in Bitcoin again. And this set up a very nice short in Robinhood, Strategy, Coin, probably others as well. So all these stocks do trade somewhat in sync. Robinhood somewhat in sync, and of course Strategy and Coinbase much more in sync with Bitcoin, crypto. So bearish setup in Robinhood here. Nice short right before 10 a.m. as traders resumed buying puts and selling calls. So let's go take a look at Bookmap. Go to Robinhood. And Robinhood buyers doing a pretty good job of reversing this. So there's that short right at 125 as traders resume buying puts and selling calls. Good for about a 6-point drop lower. Down to 119. Then the aggressive buyers came back in again. So you can see cumulative volume delta at the open flattens out. Dips down a little bit. Then the aggressive buyers start to come in. You can see the green volume dots again. And now aggressive buyers continue to drive Robinhood higher. Let's go back to Hero. All right, so starting right around 1045, traders stopped buying puts, started buying calls, and Robinhood trying to recover. All right, one more stock that I want to take a look at. is Palantir, another a bullish stock, bullish opening drive, traders buying calls and selling puts. Palantir broke above the 165 hedge wall. Looks like a little bit of resistance at that level. Then Palantir broke up above and now consolidating as the call buyers took their foot off the gas. Palantir, one of the stocks that was beaten down the last few weeks with concerns about AI valuations, AI stock valuations. So let's go take a look at Bookmap. We'll go to Palantir. Call buyers, put sellers, also aggressive buyers, shown by rising cumulative volume delta, all the green volume dots. And hello, Roblox gamer guy. Welcome, glad you're here. All right, so nice bullish setup here, and Palantir now consolidating as the call buyers have taken the foot off the gas. And also the put sellers have taken their foot off the gas. All right, let's take a look at a couple of other crypto-related stocks. I don't have these in Bookmap, but we can take a look at Hero here. First of all, Strategy. Similar setup to Robinhood. Some buyers coming in at the open, setting up a very nice divergent short as traders continue to sell calls. That was at right around 10 a.m. just before. Now Strategy trying to recover. Coinbase. A lot of aggressive sellers right at the open. It's call sellers. Looks like some larger block orders in there, shown by the vertical lines. So traders selling calls from the open. Looks like there were some buyers coming in, but Coinbase eventually reversed lower as traders continue to sell calls and buy puts. All right, does anyone have any stocks they want me to take a look at? And I'm going to shift back to the indexes. All right, so it looks like now the index hero signal for the S&P 500 has shifted sharply lower. Right at 2 p.m. Let's check the equity signal. It shifted lower as well, but not as sharply, just below the Spotgamma implied one-day move high. That's based on the opening price for SPX, and is based on gamma, not the typical expected move you can see in an options chain. All right, back to S&P 500. Sharp drop lower. Let's go take a look at Bookmap. Let's see what's going on. So when we were looking at the S&P 500, we always saw this starting to move lower. Let's check our trend line. Mark that trend break. So you can see the aggressive sellers were starting to come in, more and more magenta volume dots as price was moving higher. You can see cumulative volume delta made a lower high as price made a higher high. More aggressive sellers coming in, and then finally at 2 p.m. Broke sharply lower. Resistance again at the SPY 683 volatility trigger. So let's go back to Hero. Let's check the NASDAQ, then we'll take a look at Hero. NJC asked, does that mean SPY is going down? Yeah, so any form of the SP 500, whether it's SPY, SPX, or ES, all move in sync, and they're all moving down. All right, so NASDAQ moving down as well. So let's go back to ES. So we can confirm that. We'll go to the SPX 1 minute chart. It broke the uptrend. So that's SPX. So we know ES, SPX, and SPY. Check SPY. All moving lower. We'll zoom in on this. So you can see that reversal again happened right at the SPY 683 volatility trigger, acting as resistance. So let's go take a look at Hero and then trace again. So Hero, really sharp drop in Hero. And that was just below the, we know it was the 683 volatility trigger, and also the 6844.88 Spotgamma implied 1 day move high. I don't know if was there any news? And Roblox asked how to read GEX changes in Spotgamma for NVIDIA stock for every 5 minutes. Unfortunately, that is not available. So for NVIDIA to look at GEX, it's only available on a daily basis, not updated like Trace would be for SPX every 10 minutes. This data is only available for SPX right now. So let's take a look at something. Let's go to Equity Hub. And let's shift to the newer synthetic open interest model. And we'll go to NVIDIA. Take a look at put call impact chart. So this is the GEX bars for NVIDIA, but they're updated once a day, sometime overnight. So this will potentially look a little bit different tomorrow. And note here's a key strike at 183. Remember, NVIDIA was up at the 180 key gamma strike right here, but this is showing this 183. Looks like being a larger gamma strike. Back to Hero NVIDIA. So yeah, 180 is the key gamma strike. Not sure why. Why it's the 180 key gamma strike compared to 183, but that's what it is. All right, so there's GEX bars for NVIDIA, but again, updated every 24 hours, not 5 minutes. All right, so let's go back to S&P 500. Let's take a look at Trace. Looks like a little bit of positive gamma forming around the hedge wall there, or the volatility trigger at 68.15. And looking at questions, Ron asks, what were those GEX colorful screens and how to leverage it? So I'm not sure which screen you're referring to. Or are you talking about this screen right here? I'm going to assume that's the case. So what this is showing, This is the trace gamma heat map. Red shading indicates negative gamma. Negative gamma, we're looking for higher volatility, faster price action, sharper reversals, potentially or really more trending markets. Then blue shading showing positive gamma, way up above, way down below, indicating lower volatility. And then often these large GIX bars on the left side, the 99 percentile strikes can act as targets for price as zero DTE traders drive price towards those levels. Let's take a look at charm, see if we can find a potential end-of-day pin target. So the most likely pin target is right here at 68.20. That would be just above the short strike of the Captain Condor, Iron Condor, which is at 68.10. And that's also 5 points above the volatility trigger at 68.15. So I'm looking for blue buying support above, red selling pressure. Red selling pressure up above, blue buying support below. And this is due to time decay. All right, back to gamma. Let's take a quick look at a hero. And traders continue to aggressively sell calls and buy puts. Check the equity signal. Not as sharp a drop, but definitely buying puts and selling calls. Back to Bookmap. And the sharp drop continues from the SPY 683 volatility trigger down to VWAP. This is light blue line right here. Maybe finding support at VWAP. Looks like some large traders now are starting to fade this move. Buying with iceberg orders. So now the lines in the subchart look a little bit more normal. Cumulative volume delta falling. You can see all the magenta volume dots. And again, cumulative volume delta really started to fall right about 12:45. It started moving lower. And it looks like with that move, large traders were slowly accumulating ES contracts. And then sell stop orders helped to fuel that move lower. And NJC asked, do subchart iceberg orders come standard? I assume you mean with a Bookmap Global or Global subscription. And no, they do not. Sorry about that. That is an add-on, the MBO bundle. And remember, a Bookmap is offering a 50% discount on add-ons. I assume that does include the MBO bundle. And for futures traders, MBO bundle is a really important add-on, very useful. And again, it right now is available for 50% off. So the MBO bundle is an extra, it's an add-on, but right now 50% off. All right, last call for questions or stocks. All right, I'm going to have to look at my news feed after I wrap this up to see what caused this. Certainly looks like a news event. Let's take a quick check of NASDAQ. NASDAQ dropped not as sharp. Not as much of a give back in NASDAQ as the S&P 500. Now broken down below VWAP. All right, everyone, my time is up. I want to thank you very much for watching. Thanks for your questions and comments. And remember, on Wednesday, we have ADP data and then S&P and ISM services PMI data to talk about. All right, everyone, have a great afternoon. I hope to see you on Wednesday. Thanks again. I'll see you on Wednesday. Bye.